Welcome to the HabitStack Podcast, where we talk to fellow founders who are in the thick of things as they execute their plans to grow their business. Because stories about past successes are interesting, but hearing from people who are in the middle of the battle right now, that's invaluable. I'm Scott Ward, founder of HabitStack. I'm here today with Belinda DiGiambattista, who is the CEO of Good2bSocial and the founder of Choose Your Metric, among a few other things that she's up to. We're going to hear all about it. Belinda, thank you for coming on the show today.
You're welcome. I'm excited to be here.
I think I got your name maybe 80% right, but that's a B minus or whatever that is. Okay, so I was curious to start us off to hear what you are reading and listening to and learning about, and with a kind of a focus or a call out about what you feel like is your personal edge right now. What do you in 2026? I really got to get better at this. What is that?
Absolutely. And I think about this all the time. So it's a timely question. In 2026, my goal is to become the most recognized expert, maybe within my own circles, not the world, in social media. Running a digital marketing agency for, I've actually been a part of Good2bSocial for about a year and a half. The first year in a consulting capacity. And then most recently in August, I bought the company with a partner. I've been introduced to digital marketing. I'm not a digital marketing agent by trade. This is not my learned profession. I'm an entrepreneur. I build and grow companies. I build and grow teams. I build and grow cultures. And so finding myself in this space at a very interesting time when AI is absolutely, completely rewriting the game of this industry, I feel like it is my number one priority to become as knowledgeable as possible, as much of an expert on social media, because that is what our customers come to us to understand.
Okay, so why did you do all that, Belinda? Like, why did you, a year and a half ago, whatever you said, buy as a marketing agency? Yeah, walk us through that. It's always like the decision to do that, and then the I guess not so much the process, but how it's all worked out. That's always very fascinating, right? When somebody does something big,
Totally.
buys something.
Yeah. So, just to give you a very brief background, I worked in corporate America for 12 years. The first 12 years of my career, I worked for Fortune 500 companies, financial services, banks. I worked at Moody's Investor Service, and eventually decided to become an entrepreneur. And so I left and started my first company with the goal of starting, growing, and selling a company. And so that, overnight success took 9 years. I learned so much in the process and really found what I loved, which is growing teams. I took everything that I learned from working in a large organization that has a marketing team, a help desk, a finance team, an HR team, and all of the things that I learned, and apply that to smaller businesses who need that upskilling, that professionalism in order to make their business scale and be as profitable and executable as possible. And so once I sold Butterbeans, which was my first venture,
What was Butterbeans all about?
It's called Butterbeans. The mission for Butterbeans is to make healthy food and healthy food options available and accessible to children and their teachers, and help the children and their families understand why that was important. So essentially, I was the lunch lady for 9 years. So we sold to schools. Our clients were schools here in New York and in New Jersey. We also ended up growing into a couple of corporate accounts, which was great. And so, yes, grew it from scratch, 0 to 5,000 lunches a day. And so and then I sold that company in 2017 and started Choose Your Metric, which really has a mission to provide jobs to our communities through helping small business owners and other business owners have profitable businesses and know how much money they're making and how to make a great business. So that's really the goal of that. If you think about it, if you do the research, 99% of our population is employed by a small business. And people don't realize just how important those small businesses are to our communities. People think about the big companies, which of course are really critical as well. But to me, it was a really great training ground to come from there, understand how to do a performance evaluation, understand how to set expectations, et cetera, how to build a culture. What does culture mean? And then apply that on a different level.
Right. So you took what you learned at Butterbeans, and then you started to help others, other small businesses to also succeed. What really kind of jumped out at me is the branding that you, or I want to hear more about choose your metric. And we have this open loop about this other question about the Good2bSocial, but let's go with choose your metric right now, because it's kind of like it's it's something that people, choosing your metric or doing metrics and measurables are something that everybody, that's a part of
Right.
running a business. But you're like, my business name is choose your metric. That's just how important choosing your, not just metrics, but choosing the right, I'm assuming choosing the right metrics is really, really important. And I kind of love that you just went for it. It's not, anyway, just tell me more about like why did you choose your metric, and what mistakes do people make when they choose, I guess people choose the wrong metric. Like, talk to me about metrics.
Okay. Yes to everything you just said.
Okay.
As I contemplated, what am I going to call this business? I literally sat down, and I recommend this to anybody who's trying to figure out what business they're in, or what their mission is, what they do, what the name of their company is. I wrote down a list of 50 words. You can write more. It's hard to come up with 50 that resonated with me, that had something to do with the business.
Mhm.
And after that, I took the words and just put them into every possible order I could come up with. And eventually, choose your metric came into view, and it was like a light bulb for me, because I believe that if you know what primary KPI, primary metric you're working toward, you will make good decisions and not get distracted by shiny objects. Now, there are plenty of secondary metrics that you're obviously going to also measure that are in support of that primary metric. But when you figure it out, everybody gets on the same page. So for Butterbeans, what that meant was, how many lunches per day do we serve? That whatever we did, if it did not serving more lunches per day, we had to really question, is this a good idea? Should we be spending our time, our resources on whatever this thing is? And so I have a client that is wanting to make sure that his team is always focused on the right things. And so they've come up with one metric. How many artists do we have that we're working with this month? How many do we have? They don't talk about revenues. We don't. Obviously, revenue is a very important metric, but that revenue will be there if you get the other metrics in line. So at Butterbeans, as long as we were growing the number of lunches per day, our revenue was growing. Like I said, you've got to keep your costs and other things in control. You have metrics for food cost and employee cost, et cetera. But there's ways to put things in place to measure that, but you have to have that one key metric that you're always working toward.
Yeah. I like what you're saying, because I think revenue is just such a terrible metric, because it has no strategic content at all. Like, it doesn't drive a certain behavior. There's 1,000 things you can do if you could do different, being a bit different business, and
That's right.
have the revenue metric. So, okay. So the two examples that you gave, I guess what I'm curious about is, what other metric would be a candidate for Butterbeans that you had to choose between that could have also worked, or if you had a different strategy, right? Like, because it's not, the metrics need to be, well, I don't know, you tell me. I'm assuming like strategic planning, right? A lot of times you want to make sure that you're making a strategic choice, not just like an obvious thing like, well, customer service, or like customer satisfaction, like just table stakes. Like there's no scenario where your strategy is to have unhappy customers.
Correct.
Not a valid strategic, you're not really making a strategy if that's what you're saying, right? So similar with metrics, I would imagine there's got to be like, well, we could make this our North Star, we could make this North Star, and these are like the implications. So anyway, help me unpack that and the listeners unpack what would be, is there a competing thing that you considered?
So I don't think so. I mean, I think you just kind of know it when you figure it out. And the truth is, if you are working towards something else, so for example, maybe Butterbeans could have had a metric of how many schools do we want to work with.
Right.
And
Or quality or something like that, or like.
It could have been. Another metric that we had is we had to have X number of students eating our lunch or we wouldn't go into that school. So that was also, I guess you could say, a little bit of a competing metric, because if we had a school that wanted our lunch, that would add 50 people to the lunches per day. But that we couldn't, it would not be sustainable in terms of the cost structure of the service. And so we would have to say no. So that could have been another way to think about it. But we knew that the way we thought about lunches per day was we also knew that we had those things in place. In order to bring on a new account, it has to have, in our case at the time, 100 lunches per day per school, or we couldn't bring it on. So it was a criteria for new clients.
Right.
But then we also had some schools that were growing every year, adding a grade. That was built-in growth. So there was different ways to think about it. Right now, you can think about with Good2bSocial, the primary metric that we've come up with is how many reports do we deliver? How many digital marketing reports do we deliver every month? Because we know the more reports that we deliver, the more business we're doing. And we care deeply about the quality of the reports. The quality of the reports determine whether or not our client feels like the service is valuable enough to maintain and sustain or not. If we are adding value to every month, delivering to them the statistics that their digital marketing has returned to them, what has the performance, and how we can make recommendations about how they can do certain things in marketing that will increase their sales qualified leads or increase their brand exposure to a certain industry or whatever that may be, then we are, checking all the boxes about the quality of the service, et cetera, but we are doing it in the context of number of reports.
Right. Do you deliver more than one report to a customer? Or is it one for one?
Well, I guess, I don't know if you would consider this more than one or not, but for example, we could have an SEO report, and then we could have a separate report for website statistics, a separate report for social media statistics. So just depending on how we present it and what the different clients are buying, oftentimes, the social media and website statistics are together in one report, but the SEO might be separate.
Right. So your metric kind of encourages to get split apart.
Yeah.
Is that a good thing, or like, I don't know?
I think everything is in context.
Yeah.
And then you can start to think about categories of metrics, right? So in this case, we're talking about product metrics, service metrics, and client metrics. How are they perceiving things? What do they want? What are they interested in? The client satisfaction. And you're thinking about the service metrics and how does that compare to your competitors? What's out there in the industry? How does, in our case, we are targeting the legal industry and services clients, right? So maybe if you have a digital marketing agency focused on more local businesses, theirs is going to be somewhat different from ours in terms of what's important in those reports. So everything is contextual, and it really needs to start with a client-centric approach, an employee-centric approach, a multi-stakeholder approach. And so as long as those things are all considered and come into play, as long as the people that are there are enjoying the work, it suits their own goals, then it works really well, I think.
Yeah. How do you move through a situation where maybe you're talking to a leadership team, you're like brainstorming what is our key metric or North Star, whatever language you use, and there is like you get into, I don't know if this ever happens to you, but you get into a situation where there's increasing amounts of analysis, perhaps even analysis paralysis, perhaps even kind of, but of like, you can imagine like, well, wait a second, if we say reports, then that's gonna motivate us to split the reports up into as many different packages, and that might not be best for the customers. And like you're gonna get into this kind of hard to pick. How do you help a team move through into like, you know what, this is gonna work? And yeah, what did you
Yeah,
get
I
in that
mean, I think
situation?
you have to have real definitions of how to measure something and not fictional measurements, right? And make sure that the incentives are in alignment for what everyone is trying to achieve, right? At the end of the day, we want to make sure that our clients are happy with our service and that we're delivering them what they want. If we were to split up reports in such a way that made no sense for them, that is obviously not in alignment with the idea. So keep it simple. I mean, honestly, you have to keep it simple. You can't, I mean, I think if somebody came to me with this analysis paralysis, then we would say, okay, if a client gets any report, it counts as one, just one per client. We're just going to make this simple. You can't let the analysis run away or you lose the whole point.
Yeah, I think you're right. I often will have a conversation similar to this, and if we set this goal, then like it could impact negatively all these other. We could neglect these other areas, or we could compromise these other areas. And I just find myself saying, well, yeah, but we're not going to do that. Like, of course, like
Exactly.
there's 1,000 things that we could do wrong, just because we're saying this is our goal. But the implication is that we're not going to tank the rest of the business in the service of this goal. We have to do them
Exactly.
both.
Yes.
Yeah. So Good to be social. You've niched down really interestingly to the legal industry. I'm always curious, right? Am I right?
Yes.
I think, yeah. So I'm always, or maybe it was already niche when you bought it.
It
I'm
was
not sure.
already niche when I bought it. The company is about 13 years old.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you know the history of that? I always admire companies that are very clear and willing to exclude a bunch of industries and say, we're for legal. Do you have any context, or you must, why did they choose that? And how did whoever you bought it from get the courage to actually niche down?
Yeah, no, it was super simple. The founder of the company was a lawyer
Ah,
and
right.
he, was already in the space and developed a website for a law firm that he was working for and was good at it, had a knack for marketing,
Right.
and the rest is history.
Right. Cool. Um, okay. You were telling me a story about how you came to buy the company. So maybe let's go back to that.
Yeah, so basically, when I was, focused primarily on Choose Your Metric, I had the opportunity to come in and do some consulting for Good2bSocial. And to make a long story short, um, the company that owned it, who had purchased it from the original founder, decided that it would be best for the two entities to be run separately. And so the opportunity presented itself, and so I already knew all of the people. I knew the services. I was very impressed with everyone. Very impressed with the services. I knew some of the clients, not all of them. Because
Right.
I was a consultant, I had tried to stay a little bit behind the scenes because I didn't want to, take and get to know people and then feel like I was going to be leaving. And then they were like, where did she go?
Yeah.
So I was at a little bit of a disadvantage at the beginning because I had not met as many people as maybe I could have. Um, but it was at that point that I made a huge concerted effort to get to know our clients. And so, yeah, we came to terms that we could agree to, and here we are.
How's it gone so far?
It's going really well.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. One of the things that I know about myself is that I do really enjoy working with other people. And I was fortunate enough to find a business partner that has joined me in this new venture. Keith Edwards is my partner, and he was introduced to me by my husband. And he does have a legal marketing background, unlike myself. So that was really beneficial and really helpful to the company and to the team. So we're really excited, and we're just like jumping in with both feet.
So you're in this process of becoming the world's expert in social media.
Exactly. So what could
Um,
go wrong?
what could go wrong?
So
Yeah.
what could go wrong?
Yeah, yeah, and it's it should be a couple days worth of study, and it's a static kind of situation where nothing's dynamic or changing these days, and so
Exactly.
it should be
That
straightforward.
should be good.
Yeah. But in all seriousness, what are some of the things that you're learning, and that maybe that surprised you, or that you're kind of particularly excited about that you didn't anticipate?
Well, um, I think what surprised me, mm, I don't really know because I that anything necessarily surprised me only because I kind of was already there. I mean, I
Right.
feel like I knew more about the organization than the people who owned it.
Well, what about social media as you're in this like learning curve?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not necessarily surprised because it wasn't like I knew anything before.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
AI is certainly new, and so I think that the people around me are probably more surprised than I am to hear. And I'm trying to prepare everybody. See, here's the thing. This is what I tell my team. What sets us apart is that your owner, your founder, whatever, your leader has no digital marketing background. And all of our competitors, that's exactly who started those companies.
Right.
So they come to this with a digital marketing perspective. When they read those reports, they know exactly what's in them. They understand every term, every metric. And when I look at them, I am the customer.
Right.
I am like, what does this mean? Why do I care?
Mm.
What do I need to stop, start, and continue doing based on this information right now?
Mhm.
And on and on. And so we've been starting to really dig into the answer of so what at the end of every report to
Right.
help our own employees get into the mindset of the client so that they can understand that this information needs to be actionable. They need to be able to do something with it so that they can meet their firm goals. They can grow their businesses. They can get more clients, get more brand awareness, etc. And with that information and with that approach, it really helps everybody to kind of level up a little bit the way they think about what this information means. Um, so that's been really great. And so maybe they were surprised. Um, and I think that we've made several tweaks to the way we do things. And I've been so pleasantly surprised as I sit in on meetings with clients and they notice them and they say them out loud because they noticed them. And I get to look at our team and say, look, I told
Mhm.
you if we just had this one thing, if we did this one change, that it would make a difference. And I'm so excited every single time
Yeah.
that happens
Yeah.
because it happens every week. And our clients genuinely appreciate that we are thinking of them
Mm.
and that we are coming to them with ideas, with information that are recommendation, and not just regurgitating a report that a digital marketer completely understands. And so I think that what I bring to the table is that business perspective and helping everybody on the team recognize their own value, even beyond you know, the fundamental, like you said, table stakes skills and being able to think and help our clients.
Yeah. Yeah, the beginner's mind is so invaluable. And this is actually, I mean, you've done a lot of coaching. This is a lot of times just structurally,
Yeah.
even why whether somebody is an incredible coach or a good coach. There's a lot. People get a tremendous amount of value just because they're not them.
Yes. A
Because they've been
hundred
asked the kind of
percent.
like ridiculous questions, like, well, why is that a given? Why does it,
Yeah.
or whatever, and it's like, well, it's a given. Well, that's true. Actually, I guess that was 15 years ago. That was a given, but maybe not anymore or whatever, So the
Right.
beginner's mind, somebody from the outside, that makes a lot of sense to me in terms of it being valuable. What is working right now for lawyers in social media? Like what tactics or strategies kind of are you seeing get traction?
I'll tell you that the game right now is content that demonstrates recognized authority, recognized expertise, demonstrated expertise, spelling it out in very clear language. You have to write for both the machine and the human today. You can't only write a story and expect a human to find it and read it and resonate and say, oh, wow, I really love the approach that this attorney took to that case. That story moved me, because Google doesn't care about story. And if they don't return your piece of content in the search results or the AI answers, no one's ever going to find it. And so you have to write for the machine as well as the human today. And you have to write.
What does that mean exactly? I understand if you write something, it's attorney won this case and did it really well and got billions of dollars for whatever. It's like, oh, I want
Right.
that. But how do you tweak
Yeah.
it for the machine?
So usually, I mean, maybe somebody is going to search, tell me about this case if it's a popular case. And they're like, oh my gosh, I want to hear about that case. But more often, somebody's going to do some sort of ask a question around a particular type of business litigation or commercial litigation that has to do with certain type of business. Maybe you have, depending on if it's small law or big law, a partnership, breakup, divorce, partnership, business
Yeah.
divorce. Who's a good business divorce attorney in Smithfield, whatever, or
Yeah.
near Boston, Massachusetts? So if you have a lot of content on your website that explains this is what a business divorce is, this is what you can expect. And so if you're writing for a machine, it's going to be very cut and dry. Q&A. Ask a question. This is what is a business divorce? And then an answer. Sometimes it might even be in bullet points. The next question, what can I expect if I have to go to court? Very, very short, and not short at all, but clear. The first
Yeah, AI loves
45
that stuff.
words are going to, Google crawls all these pages every single day. It's just crawling right now. It's crawling all the pages, and it's based on the questions that people are typing into the search result. And the same thing for the LLMs. They are searching, crawling, not only on your web pages, but on every single social media platform, which is new. So 6 months ago, some of these social media platforms were not searchable by the LLMs or Google. They were not being turned up in a search result. A YouTube video would be, a LinkedIn would be, a Pinterest would be, but not Facebook, not Instagram, not Snapchat. All of them are now. Anything can turn up. So whatever content you're creating, just make sure that you are having some sort of FAQ at the end. If you want to put a story in there, you should totally do that, so that if somebody does click on it and read it, and you write for the human as well, but make sure that you know the exact phrases that are being asked, work that in a very natural language way, and it will potentially be returned. And if you're interested in tracking all of that, that's what we do for our clients.
Am I right in thinking that, if a lawyer, to continue that example, has some signals of being excellent, so I don't know if there's winners of the best lawyer of the year, but realtors do this all the time, like top 1% in the
Yeah, they do
whatever
that.
area and that kind of stuff. I'm assuming that the LLMs will, if you ask for the best, they're going to look at stuff like that.
Yeah, so this is very common in not only the legal industry, but I think in the medical industry and
Right.
possibly real estate. But there are legal marketing companies that will say, these are the best lawyers, or there are lawyer rankings. So there's a number of organizations that do this. You may have heard of the AmLaw 200. Those are the 200 largest law firms as determined by ALM. And so they publish a list once a year. These are the AmLaw 200. So if you're on the AmLaw 200, Google loves that. It will find you.
Right.
There's another organization, Best Lawyers, and so they do a peer ranking. And so if you're a lawyer, you can nominate another lawyer. It's peer nominated, and then you can work to get votes by other lawyers and eventually get to become a best lawyer. So if you're a best lawyer, then you're going to be on the best lawyers list, and they do it regionally, and they do it for certain categories of law, certain practice areas. If you're on that list, the LLM will pick it
That
up.
helps.
Same for chambers. So there's a whole number of them.
best place to work of 2020, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And
That is writing for the computer right there. So the
yeah.
best of lists, Google loves that stuff.
Mm, mm. Let me ask you a question about leadership teams and goal setting and that kind of thing. You've gone through this. I think you've made the leap. I think as you grew Butterbeans from smaller to larger. Like the direct management, like fingers and everything, to indirect management, where you have some senior leaders who are functional. They're dealing with different areas. I'm assuming also you're a board member, startup advisor, so you've observed this happen in others. And my question is, there's this transition point that people make, the founders make from one to the other.
Yes,
Leading directly versus leading through other leaders.
that's right.
And it always goes smoothly, and it's super simple, and it's not complicated to do. Not really. I guess I'm curious to hear your observations about the good, bad, and the ugly for yourself and for others as they go through that transition. What are the challenges there and tips that you have for making that transition?
Yeah, I mean, the truth is it is hard, particularly whenever you like things done a certain way. If you've owned your business and you've been the one to figure things out to begin with, but you being in everything is not scalable, right? So you have to learn how to work through other people. You have to trust them. You have to let go. You have to recognize that if you can't let other people do things, then you're not going to potentially reach the growth goals that you have in mind. So I'm a fundamental believer in having a strong mission, vision, and core values identified for your organization and using those three together as a decision-making framework for how everything runs. It drives the culture. It drives the brand messaging externally. It drives your policies and procedures for how the business operates. It takes into consideration your relationships with, again, all of your stakeholders. And if you do this really well, then you can make sure that everybody on the team understands where you're coming from your mission, vision, and especially those core values, and train them that this is how we do things. And so, for example, I'm training a finance team right now on how to do things. And one of the things that I love our team, but one of the elements about them is that they are all pretty young. They're all pretty young. None of them have worked for Fortune 500 companies and come from a training ground of that nature. They really came from college and have worked for Good2bSocial for a few years. And so I am actively training them. And so, for example, today I had a meeting with one of our absolute stars, who's a finance manager, among other things. We all wear a lot of hats. And one of the tasks that she had before today was to go meet with some of our account managers to find out what they expected to happen with their accounts this year. So she came back and she gave me the information that she had learned. And she said, but this is one area where I need some guidance on how is this going to work. And so we had a conversation about it and how it's going to work and some of the things that are going to impact how this thing works. And I said, and on our meeting next Tuesday, we have a team-wide meeting every Tuesday. I said, why don't you explain it to everybody? So this is what I do constantly. I am training them. I am explaining it to them. And I'm saying, and now you get to go tell everybody else. Yesterday, one of my employees came to me and he said, oh, we have a sales call today. I'm going to be on the call as a sales specialist. This is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be demoing this thing. And I explained, he's like, I need advice on how do I do this, that, or the other in the call. We went through it all. I said, you got to do 20% of the talking and 80% of the listening. This is how you do that. These are the types of questions you're going to ask, and you're going to get them to do all this, that, and the other. Now you go tell everybody else that's going to be on the call with you what we just talked about and go have a great call. Mm-hmm. So I didn't say, I've got to be on the call. You've never done this before. I said, go make the best of it, because this is the only way that they're going to figure it out. And then we'll go back, we'll watch the tape, we'll see what they said, and then we'll stop and we'll say, okay, here in this particular spot, try this on next time.
Right.
You know, do you hear how you ask the question 3 times? You chronically just ask it 1 time. It's enough, right? So this shows nervousness. This shows authority. Here, you look really confident. Here, you look like you're searching for words. So go back, train them, and then say, now you go train somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
You go help somebody else. And if a leader can't let go and give their team the agency and the confidence that you trust them to be able to do things, that is going to hold the organization back. You have to be very honest. You have to be really, say if you feel like you have some advice on how they can make things better, give them the advice every day of the week. Don't hold back. You're not going to hurt anyone's feelings. They'd rather have it. And so that is my advice. And then promote people as from within if you can. If you can't, if you need to bring somebody else in from the outside, bring somebody else in from the outside. But make good fiduciary responsibility decisions, responsible questions that are in alignment with your mission, vision, and values that you constantly espouse, and then no one will be surprised.
Right. Right. Good advice, Belinda. Thank you. Before I let you go, I wanted to know whether or not, or what's next for Good2bSocial? Like, what are you, as you think about the 2 or 3 years from now? You bought it for a reason, I think probably with some ideas. What are those ideas? What are your hopes and dreams?
Well, I can tell you there's a couple of things that are going to be happening in the shorter run. One, we are completely overhauling our reporting when it comes to AI KPIs and metrics, kind of going back to metrics. Really trying to work with our partners on the tool side to understand what's available because it is still really new, helping our clients to have whatever degree of SEO and content support and AIO, GEO support that they're interested in when it comes to executing on their digital marketing. So that is coming, very soon. We'll have new demos coming up in March, probably for the first reports, which we're excited to do. And hopefully the first ones will be rolling out in April. That's our goal. We are also going to be bringing back the Social Law Firm Index, which is a really interesting project that the founder of Good2bSocial created and ran for many years. And it really is essentially it's one of those lists that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, right.
Of the AM Law 200, but the rank has nothing to do with their size. It has everything to do with their social media performance. So that's something that we're really excited about, and that will be coming in the second half of this year. And then beyond that, we have some really great growth goals. We are interested in, growing this company to a larger scale of what it is. And then who knows, eventually we'll figure out if there's room for other target markets besides law firms.
That's exciting, Belinda. I think that the list thing is pretty cool too, right? Because anybody who's down on the list, like, well, you're down on the list.
Right.
Why don't we have a discovery call to see what it would take to get you up on that list?
Let's have a discovery call. Let's do it. Especially now that I'm the expert on social media.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Hey, Belinda, that was a pleasure. Thank you for joining me and telling me about what you're up to, what you're learning, where you're pushing yourself, and best of luck. I love what you're up to and hope for the best for 2026 as you get into it.
Thank you so much, Scott. Happy New Year, and wishing you the best for 2026 as well.
You too, Belinda. Have a good one.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Founders, if you're struggling to manage goals and execution with your team, HabitStack can help with that. I'm Scott Ward. Thank you for joining me on the HabitStack Podcast.